Hello everyone. We are delighted to have you with us for this webinar. My name is Joshua Kroll and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing with Avexia Diagnostics. I want to welcome you all to this presentation regarding food sensitivity and the York test. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Wayne Sedano, the Director of Clinical Support and Education with Avexia Diagnostics, and a very special guest, Dr. Jill Hart, the Science Director at YorkTest, who will be discussing some key benefits and details of the York test. Now, without further ado, Dr. Wayne Sedano and Dr. Jill Hart.
Dr. Hart, we are honored to have you here with us at Avexia, and I understand you've been the Science Director at YorkTest since 2005. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also your background and your expertise?
Yes, thank you very much, firstly, to Avexia for inviting me to present this webinar today. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you. My name is Dr. Jill Hart. As you say, I'm the Scientific Director at YorkTest Laboratories. My background is as a biochemist, so I'm not a clinician or a nutritional therapist, but as a biochemist, I've been involved for more than 30 years in the design and development of diagnostic tests and testing services. I started my career as a PhD in pituitary function in hormone assays, and actually was involved in developing one of the first automated immunoassay systems to measure hormones that was used in hospitals in the UK. So as a biochemist, I was delighted to be able to join YorkTest in 2005, where YorkTest had already been around then. YorkTest was formed in 1982, so had a lot of experience then. And in 1998, YorkTest, the scientists there that came from the University of York in the UK, developed the first food-specific IgG test for measuring food sensitivity, the first test that was developed in the UK at that time. And we're really, really proud of our heritage and what we've been able to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us that background and history. It's extremely important to, look at the genesis and understand the genesis of how the test and testing in the lab was certainly developed. There's always a burning question that a lot of clinicians, have, and I want to ask you, what is the difference between an allergy and a food sensitivity, and why is there just confusion? Can you please help with that?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, and I'm asked this an awful lot actually, because there is still a great confusion between allergies and food sensitivities, and indeed food intolerances. If you think about an allergy, it's an immediate reaction. It's caused by an IgE antibody reaction, and it's potentially life-threatening. People with allergies typically react to things like milk, shellfish, peanuts, tree nuts, eggs, etc. And they can have potentially life-threatening reactions that are very quick, very immediate, but they tend to affect a relatively small percentage of the population. When it comes to food intolerances and food sensitivities, food intolerances we typically think of as being things like your lactose intolerance, so that's your milk sugar intolerance, which is very different to a milk sensitivity. Also things like reactions to chemicals such as things like histamines, sulfites, etc. And then on the other scale, we've got our food sensitivity tests, and here we measure food-specific IgG. So rather than the IgE reactions of an allergy, we're measuring the IgG reactions. Now, in the past, these have been called delayed allergies, and so it's not surprising that people are confused sometimes, but food-specific IgG as a measurement of food sensitivity is very different. Food sensitivities tend to be delayed. They tend to take, maybe 1 to 3 days to manifest themselves, which means you can eat something on a Saturday and maybe not, have the effect of the reaction until maybe a Tuesday. They're not life-threatening, but they can be incredibly impactful and have, really impact quality of life. And also with food sensitivities, they're not necessarily lifelong. A lot is to do with the quality of the gut. And if you can go through, a gut healing protocol, giving the gut time to heal, foods can sometimes be reintroduced in a controlled way. It's an elimination diet that we, prescribe based on our food-specific IgG test is not necessarily for life. So using a food-specific IgG test gives, an effective fast track to help define an elimination diet protocol. And this is, really important. And these are, the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Doc, I know you have a lot of experience, a lot of years doing this, and I saw a lot of the research papers and research that you've been involved in, and it's fantastic. Can you give us a couple of reasons why clinicians order these tests from you in general? So I know you have a lot of experience on that. Can you talk on that for a moment or two?
Absolutely. Because we've been in business a long time, since 1998, we actually collect feedback data from our patients on a regular basis. We review these twice a year in our quality review meeting, and so we actually have hundreds of data sets, literally each year, where we can get feedback. And the majority of people that come to us are suffering with things like digestive problems, with headaches, migraines, low energy, low mood, skin conditions, etc. So there's a wide range of different reasons why people come to us. They may also have things like joint pains, etc. And also people that come to us tend to have been suffering. About 80% of people have been suffering for more than a year, which means they've been suffering in silence with maybe their IBS or their migraines, and they really want some help with that. And often they suspect that foods could be involved, but they're not quite sure what to do or how to find out the best course of practice to move forward and to feel better. And because we've got that experience, we are very much an evidence-based company. We've got our own laboratory, which I'll talk about in a minute, which means that we don't just test for food-specific IgG, we actually manufacture the tests as well. So we have the ultimate in quality control measures.
That's extremely important. That's really good to know that you're on the front lines with all of this. Are there any common food sensitivities, like to food or drinks, that you can tell our listeners that you've experienced in all of your years of experience?
Yeah, this is another really good question. I think and I'm always asked this, and do you know what, I review customer results all the time. I sign them off, and it always amazes me how individuals react so differently to each other. So when I'm asked the question about what are the most common foods and drinks people react to, I always say you actually cannot say what you cannot actually say specifically. If you think about my reactions, and I test myself every year, and track through, my reactions are cow's milk, almonds if I eat them, flax seeds, egg white. So that particular combination is unique to me, and obviously the only out of those people that come to us, those who have positive reactions react to between 5 and 8 different foods, out of the 200 foods that we test for. And it's the actual pattern of reactivity for the individual that really matters, and everybody's different, and that's why using a test is so important, because you can't just assume or guess these things, which a lot of people do, but you really need to know exactly what's going on in your body, and taking a test can help you with that.
Yeah, as we say in practice, to guess is not to know. To look at the test gives you good information, and we don't want to guess with your health, and it's a good idea to do testing as well. So Dr. Hart, I want to switch gears here a little bit, and can you please walk us through the process of how the blood is taken, for our clinicians to understand the sample collection?
Yeah, we're really proud of our sample collection method, actually, which was developed in 1988 and been fully validated And you know, it's a really easy process. So you can see here in the slides, the first slide here is showing, you know, obviously cleaning your hands, keeping your hands really washed and nice and clean and warm to start with to get the blood flowing. Here you can see, you know, we provide everything that's needed in our blood collection kit to take the test. And here you can see using the wipe and then using the lancet, the sterile lancet, which is all provided in the blood collection kit that we provide. Then we have this unique little wand, a little stick, which is used to very effectively collect a few drops of blood up. This protects the blood as it's collected, and also helps with stability. So we have validated 28-day stability. So there's absolutely no concern with actually shipping this blood, or, you know, we've done transport studies with it as well. And this keeps it in a really clean and careful position. The next slide shows popping it into a little pot. That's sealed up, and that is shipped back to our accredited laboratory for testing.
Yeah, Doc, that tube, it's my understanding that tube needs to be completely filled. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so it's actually a little polyester stick, an absorbent stick, and it's coated with a surfactant which helps draw up the blood. And that little one just does need to be completely filled, and that defines the volume for us when it arrives in the laboratory, so that we can effectively dilute it and draw the blood back out again before we actually use it for testing.
So now, again, I want to switch gears again, and let's go ahead and talk about food sensitivity specific reactions. How are they measured? Can you please walk us through that?
So when we designed our food specific IgG test back in 1998, the key for me was that we had evidence to support the test worked effectively. Food specific IgG tests, there are many now available on the market, but there are no international standards to standardize them. And so it's really, really important that any test that's been developed has been validated with hundreds and thousands of subjects, because, you know, the actual, you know, the process is really, really critical. And we as manufacturers of these tests have got a really strong handle on the quality. So it's the test type that we use is an enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. It's a method that's used widely in hospitals and you know, to measure a lot of different factors in blood, things like antibodies, infectious agents, right through to hormones and other proteins in blood. So, you know, we developed, as I said, the first food-specific IgG test in the UK, and this unique finger prick blood wand in 1998. We have our own manufacturing and accredited laboratory facility, which is audited annually by our own UK competent authority. And we have extensive expertise in ensuring that the quality of these tests is controlled all the way through the whole process during the manufacturing. So when we're talking about ELISA test design, you know, the formulations and plate coating processes are absolutely key. We have highly reliable testing with a greater than 98% reproducibility. We run split samples through our laboratory every week, and we monitor those to ensure that the reproducibility is consistent. We have a proprietary formulation during the process of manufacturing to block false positive results. This is mainly over recording is a really big problem for a lot of food specific IgG tests. So we have got a specific blocker that ensures that the true results, the positive results we produce, are true positive results. We also measure all 4 types of IgG, and this is really important because IgG 1 to 4 are very strongly linked with inflammation, and it's important that you measure all 4 subtypes. And we also, which we'll show in a moment, have thousands of data points supporting our efficacy of our test, which, as I said, is essential when you think that there aren't any international standards for calibrating these tests. And I'll talk about calibration in a moment. So if you think about the actual process, this actually shows one little dish in the part of our ELISA plate. I'll show you an ELISA plate in a moment. And this shows you the actual process of ELISA testing. So the round circles at the bottom are, say, for example, cow's milk. We use extremely high quality cow's milk. You have to use high quality food extracts, and we use the same quality that's used in skin prick testing. And the actual plate coating process, which is a 2-day process, we coat the bottom of these little dishes with the foods. They have to be then blocked really carefully to stop non-specific binding and false positive results. The amount of food that you dry down onto the bottom of the plate is critical. If you have too little, then you get a false negative, and if you have too much, you'll get a false positive. And the signal to noise ratios are absolutely important. Well, then we come in with our sample, which is the next layer up. When you come in with a sample, you know, if there is, for example, cow's milk IgG present in the blood, then this will bind to the cow's milk in the plate on the bottom of the dish. And then we come in with a secondary antibody, which is the next piece up with a little pink square at the top. And that actually will bind onto anything that's human and anything that's IgG. And then we add in a substrate which converts the colour for if this reaction has been completed, which means if there are cow's milk specific IgG present, then you will get the little dish turns yellow. So this is our ELISA plate, and you can see that's you know, some of these little dishes. I know the bottom right hand one is yeast, for example. The dark one on you know, on F2 there is cow's milk. You can see they've been strong reactions. We don't measure these reactions by eye. We use a machine called a spectrophotometer, which measures the degree of yellow colour in every single little dish, and compares it with our calibrators, which are present in the first column. And you can see that those calibrators, those standards, if you like, are used to then calibrate the degree of yellow colour in the rest and the results from the rest of the reactions. We then convert those into numerical scoring. Now, calibration is absolutely vital here. We know, and you know, one of my lessons learned years ago in developing diagnostic tests from scratch was that the calibrator material must be as close to what you're measuring as possible. Otherwise, you can get different kinetics between the reactions that are going on in your standards and calibrators to the reactions going on in the thing that you're measuring, and that can give you really skewed results. So when we actually developed the test in 1998, we decided that we would choose to use cow's milk specific IgG as our calibration system, which we have standardized at YorkTest, and we have working reference standards that we keep stored, that we reference against and have over the years to ensure absolute consistency through, which means that your kinetics across your plate is actually really consistent, and this, you know, this doesn't cause some of the anomalies that we've seen when we've compared to competitor tests that have used things like total IgG and things that are not so directly related to what is actually being measured. So you can see here, here's an example of results. And what we do is we actually provide the results on a scale of 0 to 100. And this is from our many years of experience of knowing that the maximum type of reaction that you're going to ever get, which is obviously up your 100 and down to your 0. And in between that, you've got levels of, you know, your green, which is your normal reactivity, at the lower levels of scale, into your borderline, which is in diagnostic terms, it could be either positive or negative. It's in between, and many people find that removing foods from the borderline area can be just as helpful and as impactful as moving from the red high reactivity area. And for each of the 200 foods that we measure reactions to, you will be provided with a score, which is absolutely brilliant, because you can actually track this, as I've done for many years with my results. so that you can actually see that when you remove foods from your diet, you'll, for example, with me, my cow's milk used to be up in the sort of in the 70s, 80s, levels. And as I've removed cow's milk from my diet and I've tracked it down now, I've seen that drop down into, your sort of 40. And now I come out in the low, reactivity around the sort of 20 level. And I can see how effective that's been. And, that makes it possible to do for every single food. And you can see how that can change with time.
So, Dr. Hart, you've been on the front end of research for more than 20 years, and there's got to be more than like hundreds of studies that you've measured IgG. So, how do you show your food-specific IgG that your testing is effective? Can you talk about that, and also talk about what data has been published?
So we actually started our journey to publish new data back in 2002, 2003, when we first published the very first randomized controlled trial using our test, which was in IBS, and this was published by the University of South Manchester in the UK in the British Medical Journal. And it actually showed using a randomized controlled trial that our test, our YorkTest, was effective for people with IBS, and that result was significantly effective as well. This is a study that I published with the University of York in 2007 in the Journal of Nutrition and Food Science. So we actually, this involved 5,286 patients who had taken a York test and actually removed the trigger foods from the diet. And we have extensive data sets about this. This is just an overall summary, but I've actually got a breakdown of many different, all the different symptoms here underneath these. So we saw that 76% of people who changed the diet out of these, these 5,286 people that we worked with and who were part of our trial, 68% of them noticed an improvement within 3 weeks. Since that time, since we published that data, every year at YorkTest, we review our feedback from patients. Now we collect probably between 300 and 500 responses a year back from our patients, and we track to ensure that the numbers of people showing benefit are consistent with our original data published in 2007. And I can, really happily say that, we're seeing that track around the 80% mark. Now, last year we did another study, another independent study, which was not, not our patients. These were, people that had used YorkTest, but it was were independently verified. In this study we did last year, we had 565 participants that actually took the YorkTest sensitivity test. And this was an independent study, and we waited with bated breath last December to get the results back, which very clearly showed 82% of people that took the test reported a positive impact on their health and well-being after changing their diet. This absolutely ties in with our large data set from 2007. So we continue this process of ensuring that we are absolutely effective, and it goes back to me saying that every food-specific IgG test on the market is different because there are no international reference standards, and the only way that you can show if your test is effective is to produce data, as YorkTest are doing, to show it is effective.
Yeah, I see how important that is. I know from the clinician, and to have confidence in the test that you're ordering, and it certainly looks like you've done your homework, and it's great job. Very brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to again switch gears once again, and can you talk about? We all know that there's limitations to every single test that's out there, no matter what test it is, and I know clinicians are well aware of that. Can you talk about the limitations of food-specific IgG testing?
Yes, this is a really good question about the limitations of the test, and I think this is why we've kept our test as very straightforward as possible. Actually, we know that antibodies can only be formed to large molecules. You need at least 15 amino acids, probably up to 30 amino acids in a protein to sort of even to recognize and to be developed from. It's not immunologically possible to raise an antibody to a really tiny molecule. And I think there are limitations to the test, and so everything that we measure is a large protein. Even we talk about sugar, but we talk about sugar cane, so it's the proteins in the sugar cane, for example. Everything that we measure is looking at large molecules, because that is the limitation of the food-specific IgG test, and I know that we're absolutely valid on that point. The other things that I'm seeing come up, from a marketing point of view, I think more than anything, are claims that of measuring food-specific IgG to processed and cooked foods. And it's a question that I often get asked about, actually. And I think we need to go back to the biochemistry and the immunology to have a look at this, and also the standardization of the test. If for example, you had a milk allergy, an IgE reaction, a milk allergy, an IgE reaction to milk, there is no way that you would even attempt to eat cooked or processed milk, because the allergenicity of the milk is still there. In fact, there's some great papers recently. There's one by Bavaro et al. In 2019 in Nutrients, which talks about the fact that even if you've processed foods, you can sometimes reduce the allergenicity, but you can't eliminate it. And actually, there are some papers which show that by processing and cooking foods, you can actually sometimes make allergens more allergenic, i.e. more able to form antibodies. So I have really kept our test simple, because there are two things really. I think there is a limited information about the advantage of actually being able to measure processed and raw foods, because in the end processed and cooked foods, because in the end the allergens are still there. And B, I think it's impossible to standardize things like cottage cheese and other cheeses, because the actual composition of those is going to vary too much. So what I think we're seeing is claims about much more diversity. We can measure all these different things, IgG to all these different things, but in the end, what we're seeing is that sadly differences between the design of the ELISA test in terms of the plate coating, as I've mentioned before. You can have a very highly, high levels of milk on the test could give you a false positive, low levels could give you a false negative. When you bring into the mix things that cannot be standardized, you cannot standardize how much cottage cheese or an egg is cooked or something like that. So I've actually kept our test really, really simple to ensure that what we're actually measuring is true, and we can make true claims about effectiveness from them.
Yeah, I'm so glad you cleared up that question about raw foods, cooked foods on the IgG testing. I certainly get a lot of questions about that throughout the years, and what you said makes sense. So I value the research that you have done, and thanks for addressing that.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at, for example, you know, casein, a milk protein, has got 212 amino acids. If you think about casein, it's not just, you're not going to just have one antibody formed to it, you're going to have many different antibodies formed to it. And even if a small part of that casein has been slightly denatured, it's only going to be a small part of the antibodies, you know, that maybe aren't going to bind to it. The rest of them will do, and that absolutely bears out with the research that's been done that I mentioned with allergy testing and allergens once they've been processed. So I think, you know, it to me, keeping the test absolutely simple and clear is and only claiming what we know is scientifically valid is absolutely key.
Yes. Yeah, I see on the slide, Dr. Hart, the York, the trusted partner. Can you tell us and maybe go through some of the bullets very briefly about why you're, you know, just a trusted partner and what makes your test different and unique, and why clinicians would get this test?
I think to start with, we have the heritage and expertise over 23 years. We've offered food-specific IgG testing, mainly in the UK. And, you know, in all of that, we have an evidence base through the data that I've talked about today. We have our own accredited laboratory, we have expert scientists with full quality control, and we manufacture the test as well as do the testing. So we can ensure accuracy and the reproducibility of greater than 98%. We have a reference method, a calibration reference method that is absolutely mimics what's going on in the ELISA plate, so that you haven't got any kinetic differences. And we measure all 4 types of food-specific IgG, which means that you're not going to miss anything in terms of the impact on inflammation. We have a unique finger prick blood one, which makes it really easy to collect the blood. So, you know, the blood collection kit provides all the information you need to actually collect the blood sample very effectively, and it's stable as well, so there's no worries about stability. We have a very simple scaled results based on our 23 years of experience, where 100 tends to be the maximum that you can get, and 0 obviously the minimum, which means you've got really great ease of tracking your results if you want to repeat test after changing your diet. We've fully optimized signal to noise ratios and minimized over recording with effective blocking ELISA test design. So if you think about tests which may talk about sensitivity, oh, this test is much more sensitive, it's picking up a lot more reactions. There's no point in picking up more reactions if those reactions aren't true. And the most important thing for me is that we only are picking up true reactions because we've minimized over recording with effective blocking. I would rather not report something than report, you know, I'd rather report less reactions, but know they are absolutely true. And that's why when we talk about measuring, you know, over 200 reactions, you know, we measure over 200 reactions as part of the test. On average, if people have positive reactions, the average is between 5 and 8. I have seen tests where the averages have been up at 40 or 50. That's not, it's not good for the patient. We know that what we're measuring is true. And we've already talked about the fact we only measure IgG reactions to large molecules and proteins that we know can be measured effectively, and only to fully standardized base foods, not processed or cooked. And for me, the main take-home message is that efficacy evidence is absolutely vital for every single food-specific IgG test on the market. Without that, the test cannot be valid. And we have got efficacy evidence, not just a few subjects, but thousands of subjects.
Yeah, and on that note, Doc, I want to just pick your brain just for a moment. Your experience, I believe you said that you have a milk sensitivity. Is that correct?
I do myself, yes.
Yes. Okay. So based on your experience and the vast experience of the data that you've collected, how would you tell a clinician to best use the test results? In other words, rotation diet, elimination diet. What would you tell them?
I think I'm not a nutritional therapist or a clinician, but you know, from my own personal experience, is that Now, to start with, it's all about the gut, and it's all about taking those foods out of the diet for a period of time, usually up to about 3 months, and remove them completely from the diet. And also look at the gut healing protocol, which yourself, I know, would recommend. For myself, I've then introduced milk back into my diet very gradually, and I know that I can tolerate milk in my diet, for example, milk in a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, but I cannot tolerate milk in a pudding or a cream, ice cream, things like that. I don't eat cheese or cottage cheese or anything like that because it does affect me. And so now I know I've worked out my own limits, and I think that's it. The responsibility really is with working together, the practitioner and the patient working together to work out where the limits are for that individual. And I think we use the test as a starting point, and then then work together with the patient to find out what's best for them moving forward. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been in this for 25 plus years, and I know when there's a lot of reactions come back on a test. The test is really good because you can take the pressure off the immune system. We all know that the majority of our immune system is found in the gut. It's there to protect us. And I like to say, if there's a lot of food allergies going on, sensitivity showing up, there's probably something going on with digestion. The food is not being broken down properly into amino acids, tripeptides, and dipeptides, which are relatively or non-really, antigenic. Anything larger than that can create a problem. So this is, to me, always a good starting point to take a look at what can we do immediately to take pressure off the GI system as we're doing a repair, which can lead into a stool analysis test. Really getting a handle on that. I noticed on one of the previous slides that you had shown about symptoms, GI was kind of number one on the list. Also, neurological problems, headaches, things of that nature. And we all know about the gut brain. There is definitely a connection there. There's been plenty of documentation, evidence on that as well. So I certainly encourage individuals to take a look at that, or clinicians to take a look at this test. Do the elimination diet, rotation diet, take a look at the GI, perhaps doing a stool analysis test. It can really put the package together. This is a much appreciated test, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. I think as well, what our test really offers great value, and that's because we have kept things simple. We've got systems in place in our business in YorkTest, which means we've got efficiency gains that we can pass on, cost savings to your practitioner base. There's no gimmicks with YorkTest. We've got basic, great quality, well evidenced science, and that's that's what we can offer.
I appreciate your time so much.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me today to talk about a subject that I'm absolutely passionate about. And I hope that this information is really useful to your practitioners. And of course, if there's any questions that come back on the basis of what we've just been discussing today, please feed that back to me, and I'd be delighted to hear. Thank you very much.
I've talked for those listening, I've talked to Dr. Hart many times. So if I don't know the answer to any questions you have on the Ask the Doctor posting, I know I can email Dr. Hart. She's just wonderful, and also email YorkTest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sedano and Dr. Hart, for that excellent and insightful information. Do you have clinical questions or need additional help? Dr. Sedano is available through our Ask the Doctor service to assist you and provide the clinical support you need. Now that you have learned about this terrific test's benefits and value, I would like to review how to order it through our test menu. First, you must log into your Avexia account and click on the Test Menu link. Next, use the test menu to locate the York test by selecting it under the Performing Labs search function or via the icon found under the Laboratory Partners section. Then, review the test and click the Order Test Kit button in the top right-hand corner. Finally, confirm your account information and desired quantity. Then, click the Place Order button to complete the process. Be aware that we can also drop ship a kit directly to your patient. To do this, simply replace your clinic name and address with the patient's details. Please note that shipping charges will apply. We are happy to assist you with any issues or questions you may have, and can be reached during our business hours between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Time at 888-852-2723 Monday through Friday. You can also contact us anytime via email at info@avexiadiagnostics.com. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Avexia Diagnostics, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness.